Hello and welcome to week 3 of the Mount Silver Draft League. My name is Scribbles and I'm coach of the Colorado Cabalians. This week we're up against the Weather Gamer, aka Zach, and the Chicago Charizards. We started the season out 2-0 with a couple of wins out of conference. This will be our first in-conference game, so kind of ratcheting up the importance a little bit. And unfortunately for me, the Weather Gamer here has got a pretty intimidating team. So Zygarde, I hate Zygarde. So a lot of times when I build a team, I build around immunities. And Zygarde doesn't care about immunities, so things like being able to the switch synergy or the synergy between Zeraora and Lando-I, for instance, is, well, I guess that's a bad example. A better example would be between Zeraora and Gyarados, right? So Zeraora immune to electric type attacks, Gyarados immune to ground type attacks. You can kind of pivot between them, or at least threaten to pivot between them and put your opponent on the back foot. Landorus or Zygarde just clicks Thousand Arrows, which doesn't care if you're flying or grounded or immune to flying or you levitate or anything along those lines. It doesn't even care about losing its ability. It's the move itself that does the work. So that's kind of on the forefront of my mind building for this week. The Chicago Charizards actually also made a couple transactions picking up Greninja, Arcanine, and Dreadnought coming into the league. Greninja is especially problematic for me. The dark coverage is really good against Jirachi, and it's neutral against basically my whole team with the exception of Houndoom, who doesn't like water attacks, and Wigglytuff, who is $2 points for a reason, and is a difficult bring even though this will be the first week I didn't bring it. The rest of the team, Tangrowth, I think Tangrowth had a bad matchup against me. Swellow, I think, had a decent matchup against me. I don't think Aromatisse was coming. Cobalion is a rocker that you could always. I think every rocker ends up being somewhat viable. Arcanine has Intimidate and Fire typing's at worst decent against me. It also has really good coverage with things like Wild Charge and even Dragon moves, which aren't super effective against me, but it gets a ton of coverage. Komala is a hazard removal Pokemon, which I've been running hazards every week, so it could have a lot of utility in my opponent's mind. Dreadnought has setup options, and its typing's decent against me. So the water type is just always decent. And then being a physical mon with rock stab coverage available really threatens Gyarados. And then Mr. Manglar can do a lot of fun things. It's a good support Pokemon. Eviolite makes it really bulky. And then an ice type, which is generally pretty good against my team, specifically an ice type with access to freeze dry, is a bit concerning for me. So going through the team and trying to do this a little faster. I feel like my videos have been kind of like ballooning up in size, so hopefully get through this a little bit quicker. First Pokemon here, Steve Trevor. Choice-Scarf Jirachi. This is the first week I've brought Jirachi. I really dislike Jirachi. It's been really tough to use. I don't know if it's with my team or just the matchups I've had. I just haven't wanted to bring it. And if I'm bringing Wigglytuff over Jirachi consistently, like it would have been 3 weeks in a row here, potentially, I feel like I have to be doing something wrong. Ended up bringing this Choice-Scarf Jirachi. Its speed tier matches up really nicely against my opponent. He has a few Pokemon right at 95, and Jirachi is at 100, so the Choice-Scarf here guarantees I outspeed even +1 base 95s. Ice Punch to hit Zygarde, and that's pretty much it. You get the Hacks chance also, which is nice with Jirachi. This is like what Jirachi does, so that's always good. Zen Headbutt gives me a way to deal with Shift Gear Toxicity, which was something I was concerned about. So kind of going through like the win cons of my opponent team that I was somewhat scared of. Dragon Dance Zygarde, Shift Gear Toxicity, Shell Smash Dreadnought. It actually turns out it doesn't get Shell Smash. It's Rock Polish, Double Dance Dreadnought. Those were the main win cons that I was worried about going into the game, at least from my opponent's perspective. So Jirachi here with the Zen Headbutt and Choice Scarf gives me. It's funny because the Choice Scarf doesn't necessarily outspeed Shift Gear Toxicity, but Toxicity doesn't necessarily have anything that can OHKO Jirachi, so it has non-stab dark moves, things like Throat Chop. I don't think it gets much else, but that would be its best way to damage me, and that isn't going to be able to OHKO me, and then I can click Zen Headbutt to knock it out. Other than that, U-turn and body slam, just U-turn for momentum and then body slam for the parachance. It's 60% with Serene Grace active, so 60% para on a base 85 move. That's 100% accurate, seems pretty good to me. EVs, just for base 95s here. Max attack, and then just remainder dumped in HP to give me survivability as a general rule. Next set here is Serena. Serena with the red card, this is my emergency check to Zygarde. So Zygarde gets a couple Dragon Dances up, behind a sub, anything along those lines. I can pivot into Serena, take the 1,000 arrows, and force it out with red card. The moveset here, I guess the HP investment, this allows me after a rapid spin to outspeed base 95s. This is kind of key to what kind of my win con for the game is, and we'll get into that here as we go through the sets. Power Whip allows me to hit his team pretty well across the board for at least the switch-ins to Serena that I would expect. It also gives me a way to ensure that Zygarde can't get up a substitute against Serena, barring a missed attack or something along those lines. Rapid spins for the +1 speed and to remove hazards. I don't have any other hazard control on the team, and I'm actually not running hazards this week because of the Choice Scarf Jirachi. I didn't really want to run Choice Scarf Rocks. U-turn for momentum, and then light screen. So Serena actually does get both screens, which is really useful. And kind of the basic game plan here is if I brought Serena in on Zygarde or on, I guess I could bring it in on Greninja that's locked into a water move or locked into something that's not going to threaten Serena, who has pretty good special bulk also. I could go ahead and rapid spin on the force switch out into what I would assume to be Swellow or Arcanine. And then so long as they aren't, I guess I was banking on Arcanine primarily. I could get up a light screen, and then with the light screen, I could pivot into either Gyarados or Landorus, who are my primary win conditions in the game. Kind of messy, and this is a set that I changed super, super late. I didn't feel confident in being able to set up with the amount of priority on my opponent's team, specifically for Lando Shuriken, Water Shuriken from Greninja. So I thought Light Screen gave me the opportunity to do that. Light Screen also gives me some opportunity to potentially set up with Gyarados if they bring in Swellow, for instance, on Serena. I could also always Light Screen on my opponent's predicted switch. So it kind of gives me an option to do something there. The attack investment, I think, actually was for I think it's just a remainder dump, to be honest. I originally was a synthesis set over Light Screen, and so I think the HP is for synthesis. The speed is for base 95s at +1, and then I think the remainder was just dumped into attack. Next set here is Zeraora, Zeus. This is a lure for Zygarde. Basically, this set looks to just sub up and then toxic the entire team for the opponent. The speed allows me to outspeed Greninja, so timid, not Scarf, obviously. The HP maximizes leftover recovery while also minimizing the Stealth Rock damage. And then other than that, it's just Toxic on Zygarde and Thunderbolt on anything else on his team. This is a potential lead for me. The special attack investment means that 15 out of 16 times it'll kill an uninvested Greninja with Thunderbolt. So if the Greninja isn't Choice Scarf, I can obviously consider leading off the Thunderbolt or just go ahead and go for the substitute. Remainder and special defense to help take those hits from Greninja. Really, all this is hoping to do is to lure in Zygarde, get a Toxic off, and then basically just stall it to death. Hopefully end up behind a sub, and then once Zygarde is Toxic, he starts having difficulty switching into this set. The one exception is Toxtricity, which is why I really wanted Jirachi to be able to take that on. Next set, Ares. This Gyarados is my secondary win con, or I guess, yeah, it's my secondary win con. It also provides Intimidate support, which is really nice for the team. Waterfall, Ice Fang, Power Whip, Dragon Dance. This gives me coverage against his entire team. This is also an emergency check to a +2 Dreadnought. It can survive Stone Edge with the Charty Berry, and then just go ahead and land the Power Whip to KO it 85% of the time. Speed is for... what did I invest the speed here for? At +1, this outspeeds non-scarfed. So that's what? 128. That's 384. Yeah, outspeeds non-scarfed Swallow. So +1, I should outspeed his whole team as long as it's not scarfed. And other than that, just max damage, remainder dumped into special defense. I considered Wakanberry here, but the problem is it doesn't even really survive with Wakanberry against Toxicity, so it doesn't do anything. And it's more likely that there'll be random rock coverage. Zygarde can run rock coverage, Tangrowth can run rock coverage, Cobalion can run rock coverage. I think Arcanine can run rock coverage, but it's more likely to just run Wild Charge, and then Dreadnought, obviously. Nemesis is the next set. This is my primary win con. The hope with this set is to basically get off a Rock Polish if the opposing Greninja is choiced, in which case I would outspeed the Greninja. If the opposing Greninja is not choiced, if it's Specs or just like, has some other item, Life Orb, Expert Belt, something like that, then I can get a Calm Mind into a Rock Polish and then hopefully sweep from there. Earth Power Sludge Wave gives me good enough coverage to KO as everything but Zygarde at +1, and Zygarde's not going to do a ton of damage to me. Sludge Wave at neutral will kill Swallow. I think it kills Tangrowth unless it's heavily special defense invested and AV. So this is my primary win con for this game. Looking at his team, the first thing I noticed in terms of what could potentially win was that ground coverage was pretty good. I think I noted ground and fighting had really good coverage against his team. Ground and poison was also really good, and not being able to miss and not ever having to take Life Orb recoil seemed really nice against a team with a lot of priority. And then the final mod on my team, Hippolyta. It's called Ice Beam Wish Baton Pass Vaporeon. This is my pivot into Greninja. Specs Greninja, I think, with Dark Pulse does something like 30%. It's a very pathetic amount of damage, so this would give me a chance to pivot into Greninja if it was Specs, and hopefully determine its item from that, Specs versus Scarf. Other than that, Scald gives me a chance to burn anything switching in, things like Zygarde primarily, although it's a risky switch in for my opponent knowing that I have Ice Beam coverage. You can also pick up a burn on Cobalion and, just generally has decent coverage against this team. One thing it struggles against is Tangrowth, but I feel as if Tangrowth is a tough ring for my opponent overall. And I have plenty of other coverage. Both my setup sweepers have Ice and Poison coverage respectively. So overall, the strategy for the team is going to be scout items with Jirachi, Vaporeon, to some degree, those two. And then hopefully at some point get Serena in, maybe on a setup Zygarde. Red card switches to a random opponent, which is a little unfortunate. Better than letting them choose. Get screens up and then sweep with one of my one of these two win cons, either a physical or a special. With Zeraora potentially existing in between to deal with Greninja or make Greninja's life difficult at least, and then also hopefully pull off a Toxic on someone on their team. So we'll see how it goes. This is probably the least confident build I've had. I think the opposing team has a really nice matchup against me. But yeah, that's it for the team build. Let's get to the battle. Alright, welcome to the battle. We can see from the team preview here, had some of the Pokemon right. Kamala over Swallow is the difference. I think makes a lot of sense with the amount of hazards I've been bringing to bring some sort of hazard control. Kamala does get some pretty nice moves. It's a really strong physical attacker, so you can definitely see the logic there. As far as leads are concerned, I think there's really only two good options for me. Jirachi as a Scarfer to kind of scope out sets, and it kind of keeps me from getting into a bad position turn one. There's not really a lot my opponent can lead that puts me in a horrific position. If they lead Zygarde, I can always go for an Ice Punch. If they lead Toxicity, I can just go for the Zen Headbutt potentially. Dreadnought, I can try and Body Slam down, try and pick up a para, or just U-turn out, and then U-turn against the other three Mons on his team. You can't paralyze Kamala, so Comatose prevents that. And then the other option that I could see would be Zeraora. Zeraora puts him in an awkward spot. Zygarde I just Toxic and get that done with. It's a bad lead against Toxtricity. Because Toxtricity pretty much has free setup against my particular set, but my opponent doesn't know my set. It's not the best against Arcanine, but I have decent switch-ins to Arcanine in the form of Gyarados, because I don't think they'd be wild enough to go for Wild Charge. And Vaporeon's a pretty good switch-in as well. And it outspeeds non-Scarf Greninja, so it's a good selection too. I end up going with Jirachi because it kind of supported my overall game plan, which is to scout out sets and kind of figure out what my opponent's doing. My opponent leads with Greninja, so I have Jirachi versus Greninja here. I'm just going to click U-turn. Body Slam exists and is potentially tempting, but it does. If there's Scarf Dark Pulse and get a flinch, if there's Scarf Dark Pulse and get flinches regardless, it's annoying. But U-turn allows me to keep momentum if they pivot out to try and maintain health on Greninja. So I go ahead and go for U-turn. I do outspeed, do about 73, which just basically tells me it's not defense invested, which I think was a reasonable assumption the entire time. I don't know if I've seen anybody run a defense invested Greninja. So I U-turn and I bring in Vaporeon, which is my designated switch into Greninja, just because it can tank all the special hits it wants to throw at me. So I do that. And they go for their own U-turn. So this was a really safe play on their part. If I wasn't Scarf, then they can pivot out into something that threatens Jirachi. If I was Scarf, yeah, they take a lot of damage, but then they get the information. And I'm sure that they knew that there's no way that Scarf Jirachi was going to be able to kill Greninja. And it's a really tough sell. Adaman's not going to kill either. So, maybe you get crit there, it's a risky move, but if you're playing afraid of crits turn 1, I think you're probably in a bad spot. So the U-turn allows them to pivot out and bring in Toxtricity. Toxtricity, at surface level, you don't think it's that big of a threat. I have 2 electric immunities. I have a poison immunity. It seems like I have ways to deal with it, but the amount of setup that it gets in the form of Shift Gear, and I think it also gets a few other setup moves, makes it really threatening. I think at this point, Overdrive didn't kill Vaporeon without any stat boosts, and from just like a regular Toxtricity, maybe there's something like Specs or something that would kill me. And it seemed like it was a risky move regardless because of the 2 electric immunities I had in the back. So I was kind of fine staying in with Vaporeon here, who's a really good special wall, and just Scalding. The risk there is if they Shift Gear, I'm potentially in some sort of danger, but I don't think it gets the best physical moves, just in general. And so even the +1 on attack really wasn't that threatening. And there's a potential that a couple Scalds could kill it, could get it in range of any sort of attack from my team. So I went ahead and went for the damage here and the potential burn, not fearing an electric attack for the reasons I mentioned. They go for the Boom Burst. They pick up the crit. Crit's a little annoying, but it's not the end of the world. The Scald goes off, get 43%, no burn, and it turns out after the crit, I would technically survive, but I'm not Wish Protect. I'm actually a Wish Baton Pass set to potentially get some momentum that way. I did the damage calc, so not Specs. It wasn't Specs damage. So I go ahead and pivot into Jirachi, feeling a little bit confident that it doesn't have any great moves to hit Jirachi. And if I fire off another Boom Burst, then it does 30, which is good damage, but I'm uninvested. So here, I can't really afford to lock into Zen Headbutt because Greninja can switch in, which is the downside of running that particular move. I don't really want to go for Ice Punch because Greninja can switch in, Arcanine can switch in. Body Slam is a 2-hit KO from here, and I can't paralyze him because he's electric type, but it gives me kind of the best neutral attack against his entire team. And I don't really want to switch anything into another Boom Burst. So I go ahead and just go for Body Slam. It doesn't pick up the KO. Another Boom Burst puts me down to 43, and then I can finish it off with a Body Slam here. So up I'm on, but I'm pretty weakened. Zygarde comes in. There's no way that I hard switch out here. I don't want to allow my opponent free setup. I don't have great options to switch into it. I really don't want my opponent to get a free sub up. So there's lots of reasons here to not switch out. I know I'm faster, so I know I'll get an attack off. So just fire off a body slam, just trying to prevent them from getting a free turn, basically. The body slam hits, and it does para, so 60% chance, slightly in my favor. Really unfortunate for my opponent, who reveals to be a substitute set. So this is very frightening, because I don't have any way through substitute, and I don't have great ways of dealing with subsets, I guess, kind of in general. And the damage calc indicates that, well, the damage from the turn indicates that it's pretty bulky. So body slam's not going to be able to break the substitute. So he's going to be behind a substitute, pretty much guaranteed here. So knowing that I'm choice carved, I end up pivoting out into Gyarados, which is a bit of a misplay on my part. What I was kind of hoping was that they were a Dragon Dance set, and that I could get Gyarados in, get set up, and kind of take advantage of this para. I would need a lot of luck for that to work, but that was kind of my thinking. So I switch out to Gyarados. The Intimidate doesn't work, and then fire off Toxic. So Toxic is... So they kind of stole my Zera set, in a way. Kind of a similar idea, except Zygarde's moves are a little bit better than Zera's, so Zygarde pulls the set off much better overall. Getting hit with the Toxic on Gyarados is really frustrating. And from here, I think I make a bit of a misplay. So a Toxic subset, you can kind of assume that they're going to have either some way of recovering or some more passive moves. You don't think they're going to run... 1,000 Arrows is on there for sure, but they're generally not going to run Toxic. So the better play here was to just attack to break the substitute. I end up going for a Dragon Dance, which is overly aggressive. I think I got hit with the Toxic, and it made me think I got to get set up and I got to get damage done when I can now. The 1,000 Arrows damage, I didn't even bother calculating this because I knew I was dead the turn after, and Zygarde is a threat, but it's not... If it's paralyzed, it's not as big of a threat, and I have ways to deal with it. So here I just launched off the Waterfall. Waterfall breaks the sub, and it can't miss. I have Ice Fang, but Ice Fang can miss. Hoping my opponent gets a full pair or something, and I can just knock out Zygarde the following turn. Zygarde reveals its final move is Protect, which means not a ton in the grand scheme of things, but it is frustrating because this allows Zygarde to restore a little bit more HP with leftovers, which has been happening this whole time. Also guarantees that I will die next turn, so I won't be able to kill Zygarde. At best, I'll be able to break its sub, which is, I mean, this is a great bring by my opponent. Gets even closer back up to full. I get the Waterfall off, break the sub, and my opponent goes for another sub, which causes me to die to Toxic. So, a little unfortunate here. I'm bringing in Jirachi because Jirachi's matchup the rest of the game looks pretty bad, and I just want to guarantee that this doesn't have a substitute, because currently that's a huge problem for me. I fire off the Ice Punch, break the substitute naturally. 1,000 Arrows picks up the KO. I'm not sure how bulky this is or how offensively invested in. I wasn't really calculating at this point. The thing I was thinking about more was how to position myself for an in-game, kind of along my strategy with getting screens up and then hopefully going into Lando, who's now my only option for setup, and sweeping the game. So at this point, I wanted to knock out Zygarde, and I didn't have anything that could do it. I think it was a roll with Landorus, and since they were really bulky, I didn't trust the roll necessarily, so I went ahead and went into Vaporeon, who doesn't have a lot of offensive things to do in the game. They get paralyzed. They were going for Protect there. It's the only move that has priority, and I should be faster than Paralyze Zygarde. So they don't get it. I get the Ice Beam off. It takes them down to 8%. So they're still alive. I get a little bit of leftovers recovery from them surviving, so it's not necessarily the worst thing for me overall. I think I go ahead and take advantage of this and try and get up a Wish on their switch out to Komala. Yeah, so Scald potentially is a better play there. The only thing that's risky about Scald is it doesn't allow Vaporeon to recover on Greninja switching in, which could be a problem. I'm pretty low at that point. I think Scald's probably the better play if you kind of go back and look at the match in Micro, but I wanted to keep Vaporeon healthy so that I could pivot into Greninja later in the game if I needed to. It also is a pretty decent answer for a special Dreadnought. So go ahead and fire off the Wish. Komala comes in. At this point, you can see the attack, but at this point, I didn't want to switch anything into a Toxic aside from Vaporeon, which is something I was worried about. His team seems to be somewhat oriented around kind of a bulkier build with the non-Scarf Greninja, the Toxic Substitute, Zygarde, and then Arcanine for Intimidate support, and kind of Komala around. So, I mean, this is a risky play. If they Rapid Spin or Rapid Spun, I wanted to be able to try and get a burn off as well. So, I guess that's not true because it's Komala. Can't burn Komala. So, I don't know. I think looking back, I don't necessarily agree with this play. It's risky, and I don't think you get a ton of benefit out of it. But knockoff doesn't kill me. It knocks off my leftover, and I get my wish. Get a little chip on Komala as well. So from here, I can switch out. I'm concerned about Rapid Spin making him faster than everything on my team, including Serena, or including Lando I specifically. So I just stay in and try and get damage off. Ends up revealing Woodhammer, which OHKOs Vaporeon. I'm not defense invested. It does take a ton of recoil, actually. And this kind of sets up pretty well for me to bring in Serena and kind of get the setup that I wanted. In this case, I am not invested to outspeed Greninja, but I can be if it's not Scarf. So, and I did Calc and Rapid Spin did most of the time pick up the KO here. I wasn't too worried if it didn't. Rapid Spin got a decent power boost this generation. So I bring in Serena, and I go for the Rapid Spin, hoping to bring in Arcanine, kill this, or even if Greninja comes in from full, I think Ice Beam probably kills me. That's actually a really important calc. I'm not going to do it because I don't want the videos to get too long. But basically I wanted a Rapid Spin here to be able to set up Light Screen on the following turn against Arcanine, or potentially Greninja. And picking up the KO here is really nice as well. So he goes for knockoff, takes off my red card, which doesn't really matter. I get to the +1 speed and pick up the KO, so I got a Rapid Spin kill. That's nice. Arcanine comes in, intimidates up. I do outspeed Arcanine as long as it's not Choice Scarfed. If it is Choice Scarfed and locks in the Flare Blitz, I can go to Landorus and try to get to +2 speed. It's kind of awkward. I think what I would do is switch into Landorus and probably Rock Polish turn 1, and then after that, go ahead and kill a Greninja if it switches in. So as long as Greninja, who I know isn't Choice Scarfed, isn't Specs, I'm in good shape. Specs Water Shuriken is really close to killing me. I think it depends on the number of hits. So basically here, I'm just going to try and get up Light Screen. If I die, I'm going to Lando. Pretty much whatever happens after this, I'm going to Lando. So I do outspeed, I get the Light Screen up, and Flare Blitz hits. And this puts me in exactly the position I was trying to get into during the game, with Landorus in and a Light Screen up. Arcanine doesn't outspeed me naturally, but if it's Choice Scarfed, it does. So I just fire off Earth Power here to knock out Arcanine. They switch to Zygarde, which is a good play. The only thing that really helped me here is if I called that and went for a Calm Mind. But with Light Screen up, I don't really want to waste screen turns, so I was happy just to hit Earth Power, which killed everything on his team. He had no switch into Earth Power. So hit Earth Power, knock out the opponent. They bring in Greninja. At this point, it's almost certain that Greninja has Water Shuriken. I assume it's not Scarf, so that makes Water Shuriken a lot more palatable. They launch it off and it ends up being Specs, and so the Specs damage is pretty crucial. It does get 5 hits, and so this is really key in the game. So I think up until this point, everything in terms of like luck, bad luck was pretty even-handed. I got a Pero Tarachi on Zygarde, which was a little bit in my advantage. It's 60-40 in my favor. The crit on Vaporeon kind of hurt me a little, but not as much. So I think I'm a little bit on the lucky side of things thus far. The 5 hits here with Water Shuriken really evens that out a little bit, I think. And you'll see why here in a second. So the 5 hits doesn't kill me with light screen up. They die to the Earth Power, and then Arcanine comes in. So as soon as Arcanine comes back in, you know it's Choice Scarf, which kills me, or it has priority in Extreme Speed, which also kills me. So I know I'm basically dead right here, but I don't have a good switch in. If they are Choice Scarf, they'll outspeed Zeraora, and they'll be able to kill it in 2 hits with basically anything it goes for. If they are not Choice Scarf, then I'm in trouble as well. So what really hurt here at the end of the day was they end up being Choice Banded with Extreme Speed. So that does about 50%. If you add 32% back to my health, I'm at like 52. So I would survive if Water Shuriken was 2 or 3 hits, but I die if it was 4 or 5. So it's like a 50-50 there that kind of went against me. And then really good prep by my opponent as well to bring all the priority against my team, which doesn't have a great way of dealing with it, even with Queenly Majesty, because who cares? It's Serena. So I die to the Extreme Speed. The only option I have left is Zeraora. Extreme Speed's going to still do a lot. Zeraora here. I am heavily HP invested, which is good for me in this particular instance. But my set's really bad for this circumstance because I don't have any way of kind of dealing a lot of damage to take on 2 Mons. So my only real option here, I take the Extreme Speed and I just launch off a Toxic. And the reason I do this is because Thunderbolt wasn't going to kill. It did something like 50 to 60%. And I needed the chip so that Thunderbolt would knock him out. And I'm also going to get Leftovers recovery. So I think this was the only play that gave me the chance to win. And I think there's going to be a lot of those types of plays in this game. So Toxic gives me a chance to win. So I use that. I go ahead and use Protect the next turn to get recovery and to drain more life from Arcanine. So at this point, it's in range of Thunderbolt. I think it's a roll pretty heavily in my favor. So I take the Extreme Speed, go down to 18%, and use Thunderbolt. It dies to... So it's in range, I should say, it's in range after Toxic damage. So this brings us to the kind of critical moment in the game. I'm at 24%. I do not have enough HP for a substitute. So I can't use substitute. I could use Protect here and get back up over 25% to then launch, to then kind of pull a substitute. But it doesn't really do anything for me. I'm still just going to die to this. I damage calc Thunderbolt, and if it's completely uninvested, I don't kill. I think maybe there was... I think if it's completely uninvested, it's like a 50% roll, but I don't know why you would be completely uninvested with Dreadnought. I think you would have some, probably HP. So the only play here that gives me a chance to win is Thunderbolt. I got a Thunderbolt para into a full para, most likely. So I launch up the Thunderbolt, I get the paralysis, my opponent goes for Rock Polish. So after the game, me and the Weather Gamer talked about this, and this was probably not the best move for the Weather Gamer. Any attack there killed me. I said he had Earthquake, which definitely killed me. So it was kind of an unfortunate play. I mean, you're making a prediction if I Protect that you can Rock Polish and then be faster next turn. But realistically, my only out was a crit with Thunderbolt, unless, again, you were completely uninvested, which the damage shows that you weren't. So I think you had to just attack there. Once I get the para, I don't think Dreadnought gets Aqua Jet, but I can just finish it off with another para. So probably the luckiest I've been in any game in Mount Silver so far. Really good game to my opponent, the Weather Gamer. I think he out-prepped me. I think he outplayed me. I think the Zygarde set was a really, really good bring. Specs Greninja, I expected it, but it was still good. Like, I figured it was his best bet against Lando to bring Shuriken. Now, whether it was Specs or, like Expert Belt or Life Orb or something is a different question. So I think it was a really good bring by my opponent there. Like I said, I think prep and gameplay were better for the Weather Gamer than me. And I I just got lucky. I think I got probably a majority of the luck here. I mean, the end was obviously like the luckiest thing. I think if I don't get the 5 hits from Greninja, I'm in a lot better shape, but I'd already gotten the first thing that was lucky in terms of the para with Body Slam. So I think it kind of ebbed and flowed back, and it swung back super hard at the end. But good game to my opponent. Looking forward to next week. Looking forward to the rest of the season. Starting off 3-0. 3-0 with a 4 differential. So all of them have been really close. All of them been really hard. All of them been really, really fun.